Hey folks, I'm attorney Roger P. Foley, and this morning I'm going to tell you a success story, something I view as a success, something that I was pleased to be a part of, something, a criminal case where I was the voice of an elderly gentleman. I'm going to give you some general facts here. The individual was in jail when my office was contacted. I spoke to the son, seemed like a very nice guy. He seemed very young to me, at least his voice sounded extremely young. And it was right before the Christmas holiday. Naturally, I felt bad for his father's situation. I gave him a reduced price, and I began work on the case. And I told him I need some documents. I need some medical documents because the son had indicated that the father had some issues, and there were medical issues, and they were involving a prior stroke or strokes. So I get on the case, I file in, I see that there's a court date after the holidays. And I do my paperwork. I do my initial pleadings. As part of my pleadings, even though this is technically a violation of probation, I like to know what was going on before. So it looks like the state was involved, and this gentleman did not pay his taxes. He owned a small business, and he didn't pay his taxes. You know what they say, when you don't pay your taxes, what happens? The tax man comes. Yep, and the police come with them, their army. So this gentleman was arrested and charged. I don't even know exactly the charge, but some sort of tax evasion, failing. He was taking sales tax and I guess not paying it forward to the government. So they get one of these investigative, I don't know if it's a detective, I don't know. The IRS mixed in with local law enforcement. They come up with a charge, the man gets charged. Turns out he owes, I don't know, somewhere around 28 grand. He is placed on probation for 5 years, and he's required to pay a monthly payment. He's also required to do some community service hours. Probably not the worst result, but probation is probation. He gets a withhold of adjudication. Now, I'm retained on the case. I look everything up. Takes me a day or so to get the documents, and I learned that this gentleman is basically disappeared. He's just absconded. He is a fugitive from the law. That seems odd, He's making his payments for his restitution to pay back the government, but he's not doing community service, and he's just not showing up. And I see that he has been warned by probation, you need to show up, this kind of thing. All right. Like, the son's already told me that there's something going on medically. I call the son, I go, look, where's the medical documents? I need some documents. She was in the hospital. Look, I can't get them. My dad was living in another state. I live here in Palm Beach. This happened, obviously a few years ago. He moved with other family members to another state. I got it. Okay. So I go, all right, well, take a couple days, get me the stuff. It doesn't show up. So the truth is, I kind of call the kid with, hey man, like, help me, help you, help your father kind of mentality. And I was wrong. The guy was trying, but it turned out that he had some problems of his own, mostly in the past, and he was doing better, but he had some addiction issues. He wasn't connected, I would say, with the family as much as maybe he was in years past, and he wasn't able to acquire anything from the other state. So I asked him, I was like, give me names, numbers, I want family members, I want everything, right? And I pieced together, I'm playing investigator, right? Part of being a criminal defense attorney is being an investigator, right? So I find out that my client's wife had passed away. I think it was 2013, and in 2014 is when the taxes weren't paid, right? It seems that his wife would help him handle the taxes. I learned that my client only had a 3rd grade education, in Vietnam, that he was someone who was involved with both the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese, and the U.S. and fighting the North Vietnamese, that he spent several years in the military, but he had a very limited education. He was good at fixing things. And when he got married, the wife handled the paperwork. Well, when she passed away, he didn't know how to handle the paperwork. He didn't have the education. He didn't have the experience, and the things didn't get paid. That's how the criminal charges came about. Now, a case like that, had I been on that case, I would have said, hey, how about a diversion program? How about he pays back the money and you dismiss the case and the guy moves on? But hey, woulda, coulda, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. I wasn't the attorney. Maybe that wasn't possible. Maybe they tried. I have no idea. But ultimately, this man gets put on probation. He moves out of state with family. He has some other medical issues during the time. And I learned that he is very forgetful. He may go to dinner with family on Wednesday, and then the following Monday go to the same restaurant, and he starts up the conversation, geez, we haven't been here in years. Meanwhile, they were there last week. But he's got early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Important fact to know. Because he's the patriarch of the family, the way the family is structured, he's like, I go to probation, I do everything, everything's great. But he doesn't remember that he didn't go. He just goes, yeah, he went sometime, but he doesn't realize he's supposed to go every month. So he turns into a fugitive. Anyway, I get all this information, and I become this man's voice. The first part of being his voice is contacting the state attorney's office. Of course, I get the wrong prosecutor. He tells me, hey, it's economic crimes. It's the chief. I email the chief, and the chief emails me back basically the offer, which was going to be incarceration for 6 months, a convicted felon, and then who knows if he'd be reinstated. They actually didn't say. So meanwhile, the client was in jail, having some memory issues, also had gout, which is extremely painful if you ever had it. And English isn't his first language. So I collect all the information. I go back to the state, and I explain to the state, hey, we got a guy that probably wasn't in any condition to plea in the beginning, right? Had his attorney kind of done a little bit of investigation, or maybe listened, would have realized that, hey, this was a forgetful thing. This guy had a stroke. This guy had symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's and that kind of thing. So I talked to the prosecutor, but I know the process, right? I know that this is not a willful violation. A violation of probation has got to be willful. And if you're not all there mentally or physically because of, ailments, then there's not a violation. But my client was sitting in jail, and I knew that my final VOP hearing wouldn't probably be until the end of January, and I didn't want a man that I deemed to be innocent to sit in jail. So I talked to the family. One of the family members is a business owner, and I said, hey, could you pay the money? He said yes. I went back to the prosecutor. I said, look, I get you a check for 28 grand. Get the state paid. Can you dismiss the violation? he wants to know some facts. He wants me to explain. He wants me to, I proffer a lot of this. I had one of the family members ready for the first court date to appear on Zoom from the other state to talk about it. The state attorney knows me. He goes, listen, if you're proffering it, I know it's legit, but just have the people ready, get me names and numbers if I need to clarify. Cool. Something about having a good reputation in the community, right? People listen when you talk. And I was very glad that they listened. No one does any special favors for me ever, but I get a lot of prosecutors to listen, especially the older people, the people that have had cases with me over the years. So prosecutor goes, all right, let's see if you get the check. Get the check. I email him, hey, got the check. Take a picture, sending it to Department of Revenue, whoever gets the check. And he said, okay, based on that, then I'll dismiss the charges tomorrow, and he'll early term for probation. Because why? You don't want someone with a medical condition on probation, just like you don't want someone who has a drug addiction on probation, just like you don't want to have someone who has mental health issues on probation. There's a higher likelihood that they're going to violate, and we're wasting time. If it's not a willful violation, it's a waste of time. So me taking the initiative to get the family to get the money together, the fact that the family was able to get the money together, 28 grand is no small feat, folks, right? And get it, and I was a voice, so it made me feel really, really good to have this man walk out of jail. He's not going to do more jail. He's not going to do prison. He's not even going to do any more probation. We're done. That's a success story. It's not some crazy cross-examination. It's not some big battle in the courtroom where I have that aha moment. It's doing work behind the scenes, asking the right questions, formulating sentences, and convincing a prosecutor and a judge that it's the right thing to do. And this, folks, what I consider probably not one of my most difficult feats, is one of my most, my precious ones, right? The one where I truly feel that an innocent man was able to walk away. He's a senior citizen, and he'll be able to continue life with his family, and they're going to take care of him and take care of his medical needs. But sometimes as a defense attorney, it's about listening. Listen, so you can figure out the best way to help the individual. And that's what I did. I listened. Anyway, I'm attorney Roger P. Foley. You know what I do. I'll talk to you soon. God bless you all. Bye now.